Friends, here is personality theories MPC 003 Block 1 Unit 4. First important question for the exam is genes and personality. This is an important chapter. There are a lot of questions from this chapter in different exams. First one is genes and personality. Nature and nurture controversy is the oldest issue in psychology. Galton study it in detail. Galton study the nature versus nurture controversy in detail. First subheading in the genes and personality is nature versus nurture. These are the point. The nature versus nurture. It is said that there is inherent traits for every individual, and it is and personal experience that lead individual differences in the physical and behavioral characteristics. Second point is child by birth, its mind is blank, and environment make changes in their mind. And the third point is nature provides attitudes and traits, nature reshape tendencies. Fourth point is nature and nurture correlation is interactionism. Next main heading in this genes and personalities nature theory. Intelligence, personality, aggression, sexual orientation, etc. are encoded in DNA. According to nature theory, intelligence, personality, aggression, sexual orientation are encoded in DNA. According to the nurture theory, phobia-like condition can change through conditioning. We can change phobia-like conditions through conditioning. The example for this nurture theory is the Skinner's cat experiment. Skinner proved that human behaviors could be conditioned in much the same way as the animals. Next is the twin studies. It reveals that there are two studies conducted. In first one, non-shared environment experience between pairs of strongest cause of attitude variance that overshadowed genetic predispositions as well as the shared environment experiences. And second study that is conducted in Sweden. It reveals that the finding shows that the genotype and the environment interaction is important concept in the twin studies, as it can also be applied to way of people within the same genotype might respond to similar environment. Next is infant shyness. The significant fact revealed the infant shyness is both because of environment and biological causes. The adopted children with shy mothers also have the shyness, and the genetic the non-adopted children with with the mother having shyness, they also having shyness in their character. Next is antisocial personality disorder. Antisocial personality disorder is more prevalent in adopted children having biological risk factors. Result further revealed that if both biological parents and adoptive parents come from criminal background, there is incidence of elements of criminal tendencies in offspring. In family studies, it is said that the degree of risk of developing mental disorders by relatives and other family members are the cause of developing mental disorders. So these are the genes and personality. First one is here the subheadings are nature versus nurture. Next is nurture theory. And the third one is nature theory. Twin studies, family studies, infant studies, twin studies, family studies, infant studies, and antisocial personality disorder. The person situation debate was sparked off by prominent book Michel in 1968. In this book, Michel, the traits when rated do not predict the actual behavior. Opposed to Michel view, Epstein in 1983 argued that although traits do not predict the single behavior, they are good at predicting aggregate of the behaviors. According to Ehrlichman, a hypothetical study of one's traits, there are different steps. Following are them. Step 1. Obtained measure of behavior for group of individual in each 20 situation that were assumed to be relevant to trait of conscientiousness. Second step is assumed further that each individual has observed several times in a situation and that measure of behavior in situation for each individual is based on the aggregate index of behavior. Third step, the set of situation must divided into two arbitrary group of 10 each. And step 4, obtained two aggregate indices of conscientiousness for individual by averaging the person's score for each of these two group of 10 situations. Step 5, obtained a correlation between two indices, and the sixth step is obtain an overall index of conscientiousness for each individual, averaging aggregate behavioral measure to each 20 situations studied. According to Michel, the personality traits are better predictors of behaviors. Those on the side, the personality argued that low personality behavior correlation do not pro that situational variables are more valuable. Personality is a stronger predictor of behavior across all situations, but not a stronger predictor of individual behavior at a specific time in a specific situation. Personality traits are most useful psychological tool that predict behavior most strongly. Next question in this chapter is nomadic approach. Nomadic approaches are based on tendency to see one's personality constant, hereditary, and resistance to change, whereas the influence of the environment is minimal. This way, nomadic approach state that which person will act under circumstances can be calculated, anticipated, and foreseen. Gordon Allport identified this approach of personality testing. The nomadic approach relies on the quantitative research methods such as self-reports and questionnaires to establish universal behavior. He understood that the scientific progress for the trait psychology was rooted in the nomadic approach. So, in nomadic approach, it is said that one's personality is constant. That is a quantitative measure. Next, questionnaires are used for using this measure, and we can predict behaviors by this nomadic approach. In ideographic approach, each individual are studying deeply. It is a qualitative approach. So we are studying cardinal traits, central traits, secondary traits, and situational traits in the ideographic approach. Next important question, fourth important question in this chapter is issues related to personality. Some issues related to personality are following. First one is free will versus determinism. Means that whether our behavior is directed by freedom intrinsic to our nature or by the ultimately determined forces. Number 2, uniqueness versus universality implies that whether each person is unique in his own experiences or is driven by some unusual universal behavioral pattern. Next is physiological versus purposive motivation. Means whether by need or people are pulled by purpose, goals, values, principles, etc. Next, fourth one is consciousness versus unconscious motivation. Next is the stages and non-stages theories. It is a copy of nature and nurture issues. That is the growth elements like fetal, childhood, pubertal, adulthood, etc. are controlled basically by genetic factors. Sixth one is cultural determinism and cultural transcendence. To what extent our personality is modeled by our culture and if not determined by culture. Next is early versus late personality formation. Means genetic or external factors form personality. Eighth one is optimism versus pessimism. Whether human basically good for bad is central issue here. It is determined by what we see and when we look at humanity. So these 8 issues are all about Issues relating to the theoretical models.